There's heaps of seats down the front here. I'd now like to welcome you to the launch of Pyotr Patrushev's two books, Buddha's Balalaka and The Transcendent Ape. Pyotr is survived by his wife Alice, who will now say a few words. Can you please welcome Alice to the stage?
Okay, first briefly about Pyotr, with whom I shared my life. The life of Russian translator and interpreter Pyotr Patrushev is the stuff adventure stories are made of. He interpreted at a top level for people like Australian prime ministers, including Kevin Rudd and John Howard, when they met with their counterparts, Mikhail Gorbachev, Vladimir Putin, and many other heads of state. A self-made man, he showed a remarkable resilience of human spirit, making himself a fighter, a brilliant communicator, and a thinker. Like David and Goliath, he took upon himself an immense challenge to make his own choices against the entire corrupt Soviet system that forbade freedom of speech and movement. Amazingly, Pyotr, due to luck, high intellect, and intuition, was able to escape from the authorities several times, like some magician. His swing was likened to a feat of the Berlin Wall escape and climbing Mount Everest combined. Perhaps as a result of his severe childhood hardship during the war and later persecutions, Pyotr especially hated the injustice in any form when he saw it.
The idea that you've got to have moral courage, not just to escape from your own pain and suffering, but the preparedness to look in the face of the realities in front of you and do something about it. Explore it, find out the cause, and solve the problem. So either you become a victim and you escape from reality through wishful thinking to some extent or through religious obsessions, or do you take the other course, which I think is what he advocates, is that we have to have the moral courage to engage honestly with the situations we find ourselves, the incredible environmental destruction we're inflicting on the planet, the facts of climate change, the facts of reality. We tend to put our heads in the ground and refuse to become engaged and do something about it. Okay, thank you.
This book is a collection of short stories, essays, and poems, and in it, again, he addresses that ultimate question of survival in the face of a brutal and oppressive regime and great physical and mental suffering. And yet he approaches it with wit and humour, so it helps all of us to have a perspective on our own lives.
Just extraordinary, and he would demonstrate his languages, the kind of felicity that Pyotr has with languages, and in writing on all subjects. He may have a combination between James Bond and Harry Houdini, but nonetheless the eye and the understanding of so many lines of inquiry about ideas. I think that sums it up. We miss him. Thank you.
Me and the coach's family, and totally unbeknown to me then, he obviously, once I was recruited into the Army Sports Club, he made a phone call to the KGB officer in the club and said, destroy this guy, do whatever it takes. And so I was put into this ordinary unit, subjected to hazing, ultimately probably would have killed me or maimed me. I got out of it by feigning a psychiatric disorder, got into a psychiatric institution, was finally escaped from that, got to Batumi, this is prehistory now, and swam to Turkey.
Right.
My coach in the meantime lost his job, they were sacked, they lost their apartment, and wherever he traveled in the Soviet Union later on trying to evade this history, they would telephone in advance and say, this man comes in, who is really persona non grata. He ended up in Belarus, finally, where he's now an old man, very, very sick. I've been helping him all these years and communicating with his children.
So how do you feel to inadvertently have been the author of his downfall?
Well, you know, I feel kind of, in a curious way, responsible, because through the contact with me, his life probably would have been completely different if he never, you know, if I never went into contact with him. But at the same time, it's like, you know, running over somebody on the road who is drunk or something like that. You feel terrible. You feel responsible for that. But it's not really your fault because the person just stepped out in front of the car. Well, he and I stepped out in front of this huge repressive state machinery that was so arbitrary and so cruel and so powerful that one telephone call could destroy a person's career, could send him, you know, first into mental institution and then into, you know, swimming to Turkey. Well, my part, although I've lost my country, I lost my family in a way, and my life was totally disrupted. I spent a year and a half in terrible situation, in a detention camp in Turkey, and a year in solitary confinement. All that, you know. But nothing compared to really somebody like him who was living in poverty and under kind of repressive regime. So, as I said, all I could do was just help him and his children.
Fabulous, absolutely wonderful. Yeah, it's very inspiring. Amazing guy. Did you know him well?
Relatively well. I mean, I made those films.
Yeah, yes.
Amen.